Hi friends, for today's flow you may want to grab your yoga blocks and have them nearby. If you have them, we're going to begin seated in an easy seat on our mat. When you're situated, walk the hands forward as we fold over our crossed legs. This is where those blocks can come in handy as we're easing into this stretch. I take my head to a block on the highest or medium setting as it's a little bit of a strain to go all the way to the mat, but do whatever works best for your body. If you're feeling especially open, you can take the head all the way to the floor. But in this position, as we're folded over the legs, you'll start to feel the hips stretch and open, and we just want to breathe deeply here. Feel your back expand as you take a big inhale and then completely empty the lungs on your exhales. Gently walk the hands in to come back to a seated position, and we're going to switch our legs around. So put the other shin in front. This side might feel a little more unnatural to you. We're going to do that same fold forward. You can keep your block there if you used on the other side, and just fold over our legs in this position as well. Gently come back to a seated position. Remove the block if you've been using it. And we're going to bring the weight forward onto hands and knees. Take your knees about as wide as your mat. Bring your big toes together to touch, and then sit the bum back on the heels, letting the torso fold down towards the mat in a wide child's pose here. This is also a place where you can use that block to support your chest or head. You can also take a big pillow underneath the torso, whatever feels best to you. As we release our chest down towards the mat and try to relax here, we're again using this passive stretch to release into the hip joints and hopefully find some comfort here. See if you can creep the fingertips further towards the top of your mat and sink the chest a little bit lower. Gently come back to all fours on your hands and knees on the mat, stacking the hips over your knees and shoulders over the wrist. Keeping the knee bent, take your right foot to the sky, and then as you exhale, bring that knee up towards your chest. Inhale it back to the sky. We're just warming up the hip flexors here, bringing that knee forward and then pressing the sole of the foot back up to the ceiling, keeping the knee bent the whole time. Doing this 8 or 10 times on one side, and then the same thing with the left leg. Swinging the knee forward underneath the chest and then pressing that foot up towards the ceiling, warming up and loosening the hip flexors. When you finish the second side, tuck the toes under, take the tailbone high, and find your downward facing dog. Remembering it is always okay to keep a bend in the knees here as we strive for a long straight spine and we press the heels towards the floor. take a rise up onto the balls of the feet as you inhale, straightening into both legs, and then exhale as you press the heels down towards your mat. Inhale, three-legged dog, right heel reaches towards the sky, paying close attention to our hips here and keeping them closed and square off towards the floor. So our heel is reaching toward the ceiling and our toes are pointed down at the mat. Then as we exhale, let the hips open, which should open up a wider range of motion, and you should be able to take that foot a bit higher up towards the sky. Then bending into this top leg and pointing the knee up to the sky. Feeling that hip flexor open, maybe going as far as to reach the chest underneath that right armpit and twist a little bit into this stretch, still pressing the left heel into the mat and keeping that leg straight. Inhale here, and as we exhale, we're going to bring this knee all the way underneath us, keeping it bent and placing it up by your hands in a half pigeon pose. So again, paying close attention to keeping the hips square. You may find it helpful to place a block underneath the bum to help everything stay pointed towards the top of the mat. We want both hip bones pointed towards the top edge of the mat, the left kneecap on the mat, and the top of the left foot on the floor as well. Sitting up nice and tall here. Right now we let gravity do the work as we passively stretch into the right hip. In order to make this active, we're going to tuck under that left foot so that the ball of the foot is on the mat and our toes are underneath our foot. We're going to lift the hips off the mat by pressing into the right shin and the left knee and foot to make this an active stretch, reaching the hands up to the sky. Breathing here, and then exhale back into your passive pigeon pose, letting the hips come back down to the mat. We're going to take that one more time. Inhale on the way up, pressing into the mat to lift the hips, feeling that activate the hips, and exhale to come back down to the mat. At this point, you can fold forward over your bent leg, again maybe using a block to help the head reach the mat, and relax into this. Keep your inhales and exhales deep and even, consciously sending fresh oxygen to those hips and consciously relaxing there, releasing any tension or built up emotion or friction. Breathing deep into the relax. Inhale as you come back to a vertical position, walking the hands in. Exhale to place the hands on the mat, tuck the back toe, lift the front leg off the mat, and inhale to three-legged dog, sending that knee all the way back up to the sky. Take a few circles big and wide with the hip, 2 or 3 times one way and then the other, loosening up that hip that we've just stretched and letting right foot float back down to the mat next to the left. Take a moment here in your downward facing dog for a big inhale and exhale, and then on your next inhale, three-legged dog with the left leg up to the sky, reaching the heel up, pointing the toes back down towards the floor and keeping your hips square. Consciously push the mat away with both hands as you exhale and open up the hips, reaching that foot a little bit further up towards the sky, bending into the top knee and really opening up the hip towards the left edge of your mat, maybe taking the gaze underneath the left armpit and stretching right heel down towards the floor. Inhale here, exhale to your half pigeon, bringing that bent leg up underneath the torso and placing it next to your hands. Squaring off the hips towards the top edge of your mat and making sure you're in position before sitting up nice and tall and letting gravity sink the hips towards the floor. Again, supporting yourself with a block if that's what feels best for your body. Prepare to active stretch your pigeon, tucking the back toe under and pressing into the floor to lift the hips, reaching the hands to the sky, breathing here. Big inhale here, and then exhale as you release down to the mat. Passive stretch for a moment before we take it again. Press the shin and ball of the foot into the mat to lift the hips, reaching the hands up towards the sky, staying nice and strong, and exhale back down to the floor. Folding forward over your bent leg, using your block and whatever else you might need in order to relax here. You may notice doing this second side that one of your hips might feel more open or flexible. Start to notice these things about your own body so that in the future you can spend extra time on one side or the other that might need the extra attention. Inhale as you slowly come out of your fold. Remove the block if you've been using it. Exhale to press the hands into the mat, tuck the back toe, lift that knee back up to the sky, three-legged dog, and take those big circles out wide with the hip, keeping the knee bent, drawing big circles with the kneecap 2 or 3 times each direction before slowly letting that foot come back down to the mat in your downward facing dog. One big deep breath in your downward facing dog, exhaling completely before we inhale, right leg, three-legged dog once more, keeping the hips square. Exhale to bring the knee forward, place the foot in between the hands and inhale to a high lunge. Arms high, we're going to exhale to a standing staff, bringing the left knee forward. Inhale here, exhale to push the hands out from the chest. Inhale as you sweep arms and knee out to the side all the way to an airplane pose. Everything out behind you before you bend into that standing leg and end up back in your high lunge. We're going to take that 2 more times. Standing staff, left knee comes forward, push the hands forward, sweep everything out to the side, circle around to your airplane pose. Nice and big, and then high lunge. One last time. We're making a big circle as big as we can with that knee. So high standing staff, push the hands away, circle out as wide as you can, keeping the knee high before taking your airplane, bending into the standing leg. Inhale to your high lunge. Option to stay here or clasp the hands behind your low back, pushing the fist towards the floor and opening the chest up to the sky, maybe taking the gaze to the ceiling. Inhale here. Exhale, coming back to your high lunge, sweep the arms up high. Inhale, exhale, bring the hands down to frame the foot. Step back to your three-legged dog, reaching that right heel to the sky, and exhale it down to the floor. Prepare to take that on the other side. Inhale, three-legged dog, left heel goes up to the ceiling. Hips are square towards the mat. Exhale, bring it forward, step in between the hands. Inhale, high lunge. Exhale to your standing staff, bringing the right knee forward this time. Inhale here, exhale to push the hands forward. Sweep everything out to the side, keeping the knee high. Airplane or your warrior 3. Exhale into your high lunge and take that again. Bringing the knee forward, pushing the hands out. Everything circles out and around. Big circle with the hip. Airplane pose, bend into the standing leg with control, high lunge. Last time, standing staff. Push the energy forward, sweep it out to the side. Nice and strong, bend into that leg, back to your high lunge. Taking the arm variation if you'd like. extending the gaze and chest up to the ceiling before sweeping the arms up high. Inhale here, exhale to frame the foot. Sweep that leg all the way back up to the sky, three-legged dog, reaching with the heel, and exhale the foot back down to the mat, downward facing dog. Take a few rounds of breath here before we take that again on each side. Inhale, three-legged dog, right leg goes high. Exhale to your high lunge, stepping in between the hands. Inhale as you rise up. Standing staff, bringing the weight forward, left knee is high. Exhale as you push the hands forward and sweep arms and knee all the way around to your airplane warrior 3. Bending into the standing leg, inhale back to your high lunge. 2 more times on this side. Standing staff, high knee, push the energy forward, sweep it out and around, keeping that knee high as it rotates towards the back. Keeping the balance into your high lunge. Left knee comes forward, standing staff, push out from the chest, sweep the energy out and around, using all range of motion in that hip, airplane, and high lunge. Maybe this time taking that challenge to open up the chest to the sky, pressing that fist behind the back down towards the floor, opening up the front body before sweeping the hands back up to the sky in your high lunge. Inhaling here. Exhale to place the hands on the mat, framing the front foot. Pick up that foot, take it back to your three-legged dog, heels stretching high. Exhale back down to downward facing dog. And we'll prepare to take that on the left side. Inhale, three-legged dog, left heel to the sky. Nice and strong. Exhale as you bring it underneath the body. Place that foot in between the hands. Inhale into your high lunge. Prepare to shift the weight forward into your standing staff. Right knee comes high. Arms stay high. And then we push out from the chest, sweeping around to our airplane extension, keeping everything up. And then slowly with control bend into the standing leg into your high lunge. Standing staff, push out from the chest, sweep it around. Airplane warrior 3, back to your high lunge. One last time. Standing staff, push out from the chest, out and around, extending that hip as much as possible before coming back to your high lunge. Clasp the hands behind the low back, pushing that fist towards the mat, opening up the chest, taking the gaze to the sky. Inhale the arms back up. Exhale them down to the mat to frame the foot. Pick up the left foot, reach all the way back up to the sky, three-legged dog, extending all the way before letting it float down to the mat, downward facing dog. Take a few rounds of breath here, trying to increase the length of those inhales and exhales. And then when you're ready, lower the knees to the mat. Take that wide-legged child's pose, taking the knees out wide, big toes together, taking the seat back to the heels and letting the chest sink down towards the mat. Close off the eyes, let the heart rate decrease, and let the breath become large and strong and steady. When you're ready, release the child's pose, and we're going to take a frog stretch. It sometimes helps to have a blanket or pad underneath the knees for this. We're going to be stretching the knees out wide and bringing the weight in between, feeling our hips widen as we let the gravity pull the pelvis towards the mat. We want our knees to be at right angles so that our calves are coming straight back from our knees. And if you feel yourself starting to creep forward, press the weight back towards your heels to keep that stretch. Keep your breath nice and deep and even. We never ever want to hold our breath when we're in these sort of intense stretches. If you're set up properly, gravity really is going to be doing all the work here. You can support yourself on hands or elbows, or if you've got the range of motion, you can sink the chest down towards the mat. If at any point this becomes too intense or painful, back out of it and go back to that wide-legged child's pose. To release our frog stretch, we're going to bring our weight forward towards our tummy, bring the feet together, and then press the bum back towards the feet, closing off the knees that way. Take a seat on your mat. We're going to take a cow face pose. So left leg on the mat like we're going to sit in a cross-legged position. Right knee stacks over the top, so crossing the legs and stacking the knees on top of each other. We want both of our sit bones on the mat. So we might have to adjust where our feet are. Sometimes they're going to be close to the bum, sometimes further away. But the further your heels are from your bum, the more intense you'll feel this on the hips. Try to sit up nice and tall. Consciously release any tension in the hips. And if you feel you can start to fold over the top of the legs, increasing this stretch a little bit. As we sit here and this starts to intensify, try to draw your attention inward to the breath. You may feel like you want to leave the pose, and that is natural. Often we say that the yoga begins when we want to leave the pose. So take a few extra breaths here. Deep inhales and exhales. Sometimes it helps to place your hands on the hips and tell them to relax. One more deep inhale and exhale, and then release this, switching the legs around, using your hands to move them if we need to, placing the right leg on the bottom this time, crossing left knee over top, and getting situated with both sit bones on the mat and sitting up nice and tall. Focus on keeping your breath steady and even and deep. Imagine those lungs increasing in size 3 times every time you breathe in, and then completely deflating with each exhale, breathing fresh new oxygen to these joints that desperately need some relief. Very carefully release your cow face pose and come back to that child's pose position, sitting the bum back on the heels and extending hands out in front of you on the mat. We're going to bring our weight forward, pressing into the hands into an upward facing dog position, but you can leave your hips on the mat when we do so. So bringing that forward, it's gonna feel really nice to stretch the front of that hip, your hip flexors, and then bring the bum back, bring the weight back over the heels, back to that child's pose. Come between these two positions, stretching forward and then initiating that bend from the hip flexor to bring your weight back to child's pose. Take this as slow as you like. This is just a little bit more movement to lubricate this joint and stretch. When you find yourself back in that upward facing dog, bend into the arms to lower the belly down to the mat, and then turn over onto your back. Hug the knees into the chest, using the arms to pull on the shins and bundle everything up in towards your chest, releasing in those hips. We're going to take a little happy baby pose. So taking the arms on the inside of your knees, reaching for the outside edge of the feet, and then reaching the soles of the feet up to the ceiling, using the biceps to pull the knees towards the armpits and really opening up the hip joint in this direction. Sometimes it feels nice to rock side to side here, so you can play around with a bit of movement if you'd like. Maybe alternate straightening one leg and the other if you have the range of motion there. Do whatever feels best for your body, taking big breaths, breathing into the hips here. Gently and slowly release your happy baby, hugging the knees in towards the chest one last time. Before we prepare for our Shavasana, releasing arms and legs down to the mat, situating yourself to whichever is most comfortable. Sometimes for the low back, we can keep our knees bent and let the knees fall together. Whatever works best for your body. I like to place my hands on top of my hip bones after I've done a flow like this and keep the energy flowing through that joint. If you're comfortable, I encourage you to close off your eyes and find stillness here. This is your opportunity to soak in all the wonderful benefits of our physical asana practice. Often when we do a hip-focused flow, when we're releasing tension and increasing mobility and flexibility, we find that we release a lot of emotion, and you may have experienced intense feelings during today's flow. This is your opportunity to sort of face those head on. As uncomfortable as that can be mentally and emotionally, that's what yoga is all about. It's turning our attention inward, healing ourselves from the inside out. Thanks so much for flowing with me today. Your support means so much to me. Please subscribe and like this video if you want more flows like this. I encourage you to stay in your Shavasana for as long as you have time for, and I'll see you next time. The light in me honors and respects the light in you. Namaste.